checking on the chat and everything. So that's what's going on. But I am going to go ahead and get started because I think we are going to use a lot of this time. If you have something to take notes with, or to write with, or just a separate window open on your computer, that can be really helpful because we're going to definitely jot down some things as we go through this part of the workshop. Um, so yeah, hopefully you're all in the right place. This is leveraging your degree for careers outside academia. This is part one. This is sort of the career exploration phase of it. I find that this is honestly the most important part of like leveraging your career for an out of academia job, leveraging your degree for an out of academia career. Sorry. Um, but I think a lot of people don't focus as much as they should on this. So we are going to dedicate this entire workshop to just this first step. And just to introduce myself, I am Jennifer Spillane. I have a master's degree from Western Washington University. That's just in general biology. I have a PhD from the University of New Hampshire in evolutionary biology. And then I did a postdoc in the Smithsonian Institution Data Science Lab for a couple of years. Working with a huge array of collaborators, but still working on mostly biological problems. And then I sort of pivoted into the human disease space, and I worked as a research data analyst at the Roux Institute for a couple of years after that. And then I did a much larger pivot into the world of career advising. And so now I have a super long title, but I'm the STEM Professions Specialist and Associate Director of Health Professions Advising at Colby College, which is a small liberal arts school in Maine. And that's only work that I've been doing for the past like 5 weeks or so. So I'm still pretty fresh in that position. I'm also the chair of the Diverse Careers Committee for the Society for the Study of Evolution. And we are just all about encouraging people to look outside the academy to find fulfilling careers after graduate school. Um, Nothing wrong with professorship and with going the academic route, but a lot of people won't be able to do that, and so it's nice to have other options. And if you have come here today and you're totally on the fence, like you would think that professorship sounds really cool, but you're not really sure if you're going to be competitive in that job market, or you're not totally sure about like the work-life balance of it or something, you're totally in the right place. Keep professorship in the mix, but treat it as just another option, not the definite default that you're going to go into after your graduate school or postdoc. And just to be like very clear, these data are somewhat old. This is a paper that came out in 2013. So the latest it goes is 2011. But it's only gotten worse since then. So I think the lines are probably even more dramatic at this point. But the orangish lines at the bottom are the number of faculty positions available, both annually and cumulatively. And the blue lines going up in this very linear way are the number of PhDs that get awarded every year and cumulative PhDs overall. So the competition is fierce for these very limited faculty positions, and it can be a little bit difficult to come up with legitimate percentages of people who graduate with PhDs and who then go on to academic positions, like tenure track academic positions. But it's somewhere. I think it's generally assumed that it's somewhere between 5% and 15% of people who do that. So even if that is your first choice, even if that is your eventual goal, it's nice to have some other options in your back pocket that you also know that you would enjoy, if that, for whatever reason, doesn't work out. Because I don't want you to be like Lego grad student, like hoping for a phone call for a job interview and sinking deeper and deeper into despondency with every passing hour. There is so much more out there, and I want it all for all of you. So let's just go quickly over the steps of a non-academic job search before we really get started. Um, so there's basically four steps. Really need to find a career path that you want to target. And we like lots and lots of research has been done that shows that the more targeted you can be, the less kind of scattershot, like broadcast spawn you can be with your resume, the more success you're likely to have. And that is because if you realize that you need to kind of upskill in certain areas, or if you really need to tailor your job documents to a particular industry or job family, that is much, much easier to do if you're targeting one specific area and not kind of applying willy-nilly to every different thing that is out there. It also makes each other step of this process much, much easier if you can be a bit targeted. And this doesn't mean that you need to like forgo every other option forever. Like, unlike academia, where people get into a career and then they have it for 35 or 40 years, in the industry and other sort of like the rest of the world, people switch jobs like every 3 to 5 years is super common. So this is not the thing that you're not choosing the office that you're going to die in. You are choosing the thing that you want to try next. So it's helpful to take the pressure off a little bit when you're doing that. So then after you've found a career path that you want to target, you're going to get your LinkedIn, your network, your skills together for that particular area. And then you're going to build a resume and cover letter for applications in that area. And then you're actually going to apply and interview and negotiate and actually start working in that particular industry sector or nonprofit sector or whatever it is. Today, we're just going to focus on the career path that you want to target. We're going to cover much more about steps 2, 3, and 4 in the in-person workshop in Cleveland. Okay, are there questions so far about what we're going to talk about, or about my background, or about anything else? You can drop them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, I'm going to move on, but continue to drop them if you have them. So what kind of job would you enjoy doing after your graduate school or postdoc? We can kind of get at this by examining a couple of different questions. This is at least one way into this work. So what do you do in your work now? Like just a huge, broad list of all the things that you do, and then narrowing that to what you actually like to do in that work. Probably it's not all of it. Even if you're living your like absolute best grad student life, there are probably things that you like a lot more than other things. And then what is important to you, getting at values and priorities. So this is going to involve quite a bit of self-reflection. So I hope that you have come to this space with that in mind. If anybody needs to take a deep breath, I know that can be painful for some people, but stay with me. So probably you do a lot of things as a graduate student or postdoc in this research space. Certainly you are doing research. Certainly you are doing some level of teaching or mentorship. Like you are at a conference right now, so I know that you do that. And then there are all these other things, grant applications, managing your lab or a committee, and then, all kinds of sort of extras, outreach, service to the profession, volunteer work, awards that you've won, all of these different things. Maybe there's a huge category that I have left off. Definitely write it in. These are a lot of the things that I did as a graduate student and postdoc. But certainly if you are doing way more diverse, interesting things, like also write those down as we go through this step. And now we want to think about what you love about your work. What is fun for you? What do you like? If you have a whole day of this thing planned, is that fantastic, or is that like met with some dread? What do you find fulfilling about these tasks and this work? And then one that I find helpful is, what would you be sad to leave behind? If someone told you tomorrow that you could never like code another analysis in Python, would that be something that you were like, sweet, or something that you would be like kind of bummed about? And then when you do work that isn't required, what is it? So something that like nobody's asking you to do, it's not required for your degree necessarily, like the extra things that you are doing on top of the normal work that you have. And now I want to break this down into like sort of its component parts, right? And you can break this down as finely as makes sense for you, but certainly more finely than just like research, right? Because probably there are things about research that you love, and probably there are things that you don't. So things like bench work, field work, data cleaning, data analysis, lab meetings, troubleshooting, knowledge production, just like the process of bringing new knowledge into the world. All of these things are things that you might find really life-giving and energizing, or things that you might find really draining. Probably not the knowledge production, because I think if you were working in research, probably that is a thing that you love. But as finally as it is necessary for you to kind of drill down on these things, like, and bench work is a huge area, right? So if you really dislike library preps because they're super monotonous, then, break that down. But you like really love some other type of bench work, or the process of like designing a new type of procedure to get some piece of evidence that you didn't have before. Like separate those things out and really drill down, sort of dissect it molecularly, and really look at its component parts and start noting the things that you love and the things that are just not as much for you. Um, yeah, for me, bench work, field work were totally fine, but they were not like particularly life-giving. I'm a weirdo who thinks data cleaning is like the most fun that I had. And then teaching, like if you have been a teaching assistant, if you have been an instructor of record, or if you have just taught like a junior member of the lab how to do something, all of those things count as teaching. So what do you love about teaching? Is it the knowledge transfer itself? Is it curriculum design or technical writing? Like you're doing technical writing as you design lab work, for example? Is it the grading and feedback aspect of it? I find most people don't love like just grading an exam or an essay question, but sometimes people really love like sitting in office hours and giving feedback to a student. So think about the things that you love in that process and the things that you don't. There's also lecturing, facilitating discussion, mentorship, probably lots of other aspects of teaching that I have forgotten about. There's also publications. I didn't mind writing. I would much prefer to edit publications. That was definitely like much more comfortable and much more enjoyable for me. But there's also wrangling co-authors. There's also navigating journal requirements. There's also working under deadlines, which some people find really exhilarating and some people find like absolutely impossible. So where do you fall on that? Conferences. There's different aspects to conferences. There's public speaking, there's knowledge transfer, there's meeting people, there's the sort of graphic design elements of creating a poster. There's, like lots of other things that you could be doing at conferences. So break that down too. And then managing your committee. There's setting expectations, running meetings, keeping folks in the loop through clear communication. In the grants and awards area, you're doing a lot of science communication. You're probably aligning your work to the grant's goal because they're not always one-to-one. And you're doing some persuasive writing to get these people to give you money to do this work. Lots of grad students and postdocs have some lab managerial work that is also sort of falling under them. It could be budgeting or ordering supplies. It could be scheduling, like the undergraduates or the other sorts of lab workers who work on this particular thing. Maintaining organisms is a whole separate thing. So, what are there aspects of that you find like really rewarding? Are you a super organized person and you really value that about yourself? Or honestly, are you just doing those because it's like someone has to do them to keep the lab running and it seems like it's falling to you lately? And then this is kind of the last slide on this, but it also encompasses a lot of things. So anything that you're doing that is kind of like your service work for the graduate school or for the department. So this can be things like evaluating job candidates who come for job talks, and like like having lunch with them and asking them good questions. If you are on any kind of graduate student leadership committees. You could be organizing seminars, sitting on other types of committees, especially if you're a postdoc, you might even be joining people's dissertation committees, and then also reviewing papers. Something that I if I never have to do it again, it will be way too soon for me. But lots of other people really love like getting access to that cutting edge research in kind of its early draft and helping refine that work. And then there's outreach, like science communication. Maybe you are like have created a video or a series or have, like have a really fantastic active Instagram account where you document all your field work. I certainly know people like that. So what about outreach do you love? And then there's this whole big other category of just like the other things. And this doesn't have to be connected to the work that you're actually doing as a graduate student or postdoc. It can be, like maybe you on the side design knitting patterns that you then like sell in an Etsy shop. Like that's super cool and that is absolutely relevant to put down here. So like what do you love about that work? And then things like volunteer work. I find that graduate students often don't have tons of time for this, but if you do, it can be really telling to sort of what areas you're drawn to. Is it like, Big Brother, Big Sister organizations? Is it climate advocacy? What kinds of volunteer work, are really speaking to you? And I also want to acknowledge that sometimes you don't really love anything about your work, and that's okay too. The very first time I tried to do this exercise, I was doing it sort of on a sheet of paper. And at the top, the question was like, what about your work do you find energizing? And I wrote down very little. And then when I sort of was like digging through papers and organizing my desk a couple of months later, I found that paper again and I was just like, whew, okay, like clearly they caught me on a bad day. Um, like I was just incredibly burned out at the end of my PhD and nothing about that work felt energizing because I was just doing it like 80 hours a week and I was exhausted all the time. So if that is the place in which you are right now, I totally get it and I want to honor that and see that. But there are some strategies around that too. So you can think back to a time earlier in your degree, like maybe your second year was like, man, you were getting grants and like writing papers and things were going really well. Like, what did you find energizing at that point? Um, you can also think about your initial motivation. So, like, why did you start your degree in the first place? I got into biology because I was super passionate about conservation. And maybe that was similar for you, or maybe it was something completely different. And so you can kind of think about those initial motivations as you go through this exercise. Also, just some days will be better than others. And if you're having like a particularly good day, you can try it then. It might be a lot more effective than trying to do it when you're already tired. Talk to some people who know you and your work well. They can sometimes have insights that you don't necessarily have, and see sort of broader outside patterns that you might not be able to see because you're too close to the situation. So those people can have really important insights and be really helpful to talk to. And it might take time and distance in the end. Like the worksheet that I revisited it at probably 6 months and then again at a year. And this is a thing that you should do sort of like regularly to sort of reevaluate where you are. I think that when I first did this exercise, I was like, man, I'd be so sad if I never got to code anything again. And now, like a lot of the world has changed and the way that coding works has changed. And I don't feel as strongly about that as I used to. So it's a good thing to revisit anyway. And it's especially a good thing to revisit if you're like in a burned out, not amazing, pretty exhausted place. So once you have this list of tasks that you do in your work now that you like, these are all things that you can find in a job description. So taking note of the things that you like and then comparing that to job descriptions later can be a really useful exercise in figuring out the types of jobs that are going to have a lot of these tasks that you love. It's probably not going to have all of them, but if you're, like at 70%, like that's pretty good. And there are other ways that you can incorporate some of these things into lots of different jobs. So keep paying attention to those things and keep taking note of those things as you move through your work. Questions about this so far? Okay, I'm gonna move on, but if you have questions, that's totally fine, and we can always pause and go back. So now we're going to think about values a little bit. The last question we want to ask is, what is important to you? So this is just a huge list of values. I have this screen and then a second one. So I want you just to quickly go through and don't think about it too hard, but just take note of like write down the word for any of these very abstract values that you immediately identify with as being something that is important in your life. And it can be sort of important to any extent, right? Like it doesn't have to be the most important thing, but just something that you really value. And like open to your own interpretation. So like they can be flexible and interpret them as you will. So I'm just going to pause here for like another minute and let you go through this list and write some down. All right, I'm going to switch it to the next page, but we can always go back if people need it. I see we do have a question in the chat. I'm going to wait to talk about that until we're just done with this section, but thank you. Okay, so hopefully some of these stood out to you as things that are important in your life. So just look down the list that you've made of some of those things and pick your top five. Like this, just as an example, the top five that I chose were balance, cultural diversity, knowledge or research, personal growth, and location. So think, just narrow it down a little bit to the top five things that are most important. And then see if you can rank them. Maybe you've kind of already been doing that in your head a little bit, but see if you can just put them in order, like, from one to five of what is the most important to you. And this can be really useful for just determining your priorities, right? Like all of these things are important to you, but maybe location is really important. Maybe you need to be close to family. Maybe you want to start a family or you just have. And so that kind of support is going to be really necessary. Maybe you like are really embedded in your community in some way. And so location is one of the most crucial things. That is totally valid. And that is the perfectly reasonable thing to put as your top priority. But a lot of people coming out of academia also want things like balance, and then just whatever other values you've identified as important to you. Does anybody like no pressure, but if anybody wants to drop in the chat some of the values that are important to you, like it's nice sometimes to get an idea of the diversity of priorities that we have in the Zoom room. Um, but certainly you don't have to. I know it's kind of a personal thing. Um, And then your values should be your guideposts, right? So anytime you're weighing options, anytime you're sort of trying to decide between two opportunities or two sort of career areas to target, you can think about these priorities and go back to these priorities and hopefully get some clarity as you think about this. Oh, perfect. Thanks for participating. So things like balance, location, impact, achievement, teamwork, research. People like to be challenged, adventure, creative expression. Yeah, like all of these things are really fantastic priorities and are going to be incredibly helpful for you as you're evaluating opportunities and moving forward. So before we move on to I can certainly take other questions too. But someone dropped in the chat that they have been working outside of the scientific field for a while now. And if I have any suggestions on how to get back into biology and academia. I think it kind of depends at what point in your career you are. If you are, like if you're coming with an undergraduate degree and are wanting to get back into academia. The most successful way that I've seen people do that is to get involved with a lab, even if it is just like on a volunteer basis. But to starting to participate in the scientific process again can be really powerful on an application if you're then applying to go to graduate school. It can really demonstrate that kind of commitment. If you like already have a graduate degree and you're trying to get back involved with academia, um, in or biology in some way, there are lots and lots of ways to be involved with biology outside of academia. But if academia is your absolute dream, then like again, like maintaining some kind of productivity in the scientific space is going to be the best way to do that. So getting in like any way that is possible for you to get involved in some kind of project that is going to end up as a publication. Um, and it's very it's kind of annoying and awful in some ways that like that is such a currency, but that is the currency. So if it's going to take publications to get a job, like for example, as a research professor or something, which can be a fairly accessible way kind of into that space. Or if teaching is kind of where you would rather be and just have some research projects on the side, lecturer positions can be more accessible than sort of full tenure track positions. So those are some ways, depending on where you are in your particular journey. But it can be a little bit challenging to sort of find ins back into academia if you've been like very removed from the research space entirely. If you've been working in research in an industry setting and you've maintained scientific productivity, then there are sort of more logical pathways back. But basically, any way that you can get back involved with the research space is going to be the thing to do, probably. Another question we had is throwing some light on research scientist jobs, particularly in ecology and evolutionary biology. That is so I'm wondering if you can be a little bit more specific in what you're looking like institutions. Okay. So if you're looking for a research job like outside of academia, then your best bets are going to be, as far as I know, your best bets are going to be things like museums or arboretums, or take this with a grain of salt, government work. And that's, like maybe state work is probably more stable at this point in time than federal work is, but I've certainly known people who work for the USDA, or like various other government agencies who are doing like really high quality research work. And some of those people still have their jobs. But there are lots of other ways to be doing work that is sort of research adjacent, and stuff. But that's all going to be things that you do your own research on. Like I can give you lists, but frankly, you are all graduate students or postdocs, and my giving you a list of things that you should apply to, like, is not really the thing that's going to be serving you. You're researchers. So, like, a little bit of research is good for personalizing your journey and for making sure that this is the thing that you actually want to go into. Um, so, advice for moving into postdoc positions that are in a slightly different field or require different skills than the ones acquired during the PhD. So, trying to get a postdoc that does molecular work when your PhD did not provide any molecular skills. Um, I think this can be a little bit challenging, right? So I think that the way that I would approach this is probably positioning myself as an expert in some other thing that the lab is doing. So maybe they're also doing field work that's really similar to the field work that you did, like handling similar animals that you're already trained in, or maybe they're doing some kind of analysis that is um, similar to some of the work that you did, or like, video analysis or behavioral analysis or something. Anything that you can find that you have in common with it is a good way to sort of like bridge that gap and still be useful to the lab that you're moving into, while at the same time, like coming in and wanting to learn more about another thing that the lab does. So because it's certainly like it's not the same as coming into a graduate student position where you're expecting to just like have lots of information downloaded on you. Um, when you have a postdoc, you're generally expected to be able to give something back to the lab too. So that's my best advice for doing that is to kind of like make it this two-way street and do a trade basically and say like, okay, well, like I can definitely teach people in the lab to do this thing, or I can definitely contribute to the lab in this way. But but I'm also like super happy to learn this other technique that I don't know yet. Okay, I am going to move on to the other parts of this presentation, and we can come back to questions in a second. So if I lose track of yours in the chat, just like pop it in again in a minute, and we will definitely come back to it. But I want to make sure we get through some of the other material first. Okay, so another strategy to sort of figure out what you really love or what area you might want to target. Is to come up with a couple of different lives. And you can think of these as 5-year plans. That's sometimes a helpful way of thinking about it. And these are just imaginary, like they don't have to be realistic at all. Like a lot of people sort of get very zeroed in on one option. And this is meant to help you kind of broaden that out and come up with a couple of different things that you might find interesting or engaging. So we're looking for like 3 of these basically. The first one can be your current trajectory. So maybe like you are loving computational biology and you're like, great, I'm going to be like a senior computational biologist at a biotech firm after I graduate, and that's a fantastic goal. So like imagine what that work in 5 years looks like if everything goes absolutely as well as it can. Like you land the exact job that you want, you have the exact work-life balance that you want, you're living in the exact city that you want. Imagine what that would look like your ideal current trajectory. Um, and then like imagine what would happen if you absolutely couldn't do that thing, right? So, and I don't just mean like you can't be a senior computational biologist in a biotech firm, so you're going to do it in a startup instead. I mean, like, suddenly everybody has decided that computational biology, they don't need it anymore, or maybe like the robots have taken all those jobs. But like whatever scenario you need to come up with, like something completely different. So the number 2 should be the thing that you would do if you absolutely cannot do number 1. And then number 3 is sort of more fun in some ways, but it's what if money was no object and prestige was not important? So like no one would laugh at you, like no one would be disappointed in you, and you'd still be able to support yourself and your loved ones that you need to. So what would that potential future look like? Would it look like doing something that you do as a volunteer on a more regular basis? Um, Would it look like just branching into like a totally different field? Like you went to graduate school for evolutionary biology, but maybe you also really love modern languages, and so you'd love to explore that a little bit more. It can be absolutely anything. But I think it can be really helpful to come up with three like quite disparate 5-year plans. And then kind of put it together, right? So at this point, you should have a list of tasks you like and skills you enjoy using, knowledge about your values and your priorities, and a couple of different possible futures that are kind of in mind. And you can kind of start looking at all of these things and identifying common themes. You can sort of do some mind mapping around it or concept mapping around these things. Are there elements from one area that you can sort of pull into another area? Um, and then also just like take a look at some job ads just to see what is out there. These are not at this stage, these are not really job ads that you're going to be applying to right now. But it can be really illuminating to just get an idea of the breadth of stuff that is out there. And that's what we're going to talk about for a second. So, when you are looking at job ads in this very exploratory way, just a couple of tips. So, don't discriminate right away. Um, there are, things that I thought that I would absolutely never enjoy doing. And then I talked to someone who had that job and I thought like, oh, actually that sounds like way more interesting than I expected. Just because something has a title that you don't love or something is for a company that you're like, ugh, I don't know. Um, don't discriminate right away. Like keep a very open mind as you do this initial exploration. Try lots of different keywords in your searches. Like if you're searching on LinkedIn, for example, it has like quite smart searching nowadays. And so you can enter lots of keywords and kind of combine them in different ways to get LinkedIn to show you different kinds of jobs. That can be really helpful. But also if you just like are searching with one keyword, that's also a really fantastic way to go about it. But try lots of different things so that you can really see a lot of diversity. And sometimes it can be useful, like if location is really important to you, it can be useful to sort of filter down to jobs in just a couple of locations. But especially when you're doing this kind of exploratory work, I find it useful to do like the whole country or to take location totally off so that you can see, like absolutely all the possibilities that might actually exist. Also, stay open-minded about nonprofit versus for-profit companies. I think a lot of people who are coming from academia have this idea that for-profit companies are like just a little bit evil. And that's maybe like a strong way of phrasing it, but they're certainly not like as morally superior as nonprofits or like the academy or museums or something. And I just want to reinforce that this is just a tax status. Like think about all of the think tanks that exist in the Washington, D.C. area. Probably you agree with half of them, and probably you really disagree with the other half of them. And those are all nonprofits. So there are certainly nonprofits for whom you think their mission is awful, and nonprofits for whom you think their mission is awesome. And for-profit companies work the same way. They're earning a profit because they need to keep the light on, not necessarily because you don't agree with their mission and their values. So make sure that you are not being super discriminatory about that tax status right off the bat. And then also keep track of career areas that align with your interests and values, right? So you have these great lists of things and you have these like possible futures that you've been ideating on. And just like keep a running list, like on your phone or whatever else, of some career areas that you are sort of interested in learning more about. And again, you are all researchers, so you have the opportunity and the capability to do lots and lots of research into some of these areas that look interesting. For people who have not looked at a ton of job ads before, I certainly hadn't when I was a graduate student. This is kind of like their basic structure. So basically, all of them will have an about us or some kind of overview section. This is where you're going to find organization information, like their history, their values, their culture, their norms. Some of these will be really long. Some of them will just have like a little tiny paragraph. But you can always find out more information on their website. But this is a good general overview usually. They also will sometimes have like an overview of the job itself as kind of a separate section. But then there will almost always be a responsibilities section. So this is tasks that they expect the person in the role to actually perform. And then a list of qualifications. So like after they tell you what you want, they want you to do, they tell you what they want you to bring to the table. So this is a wish list of experience or credentials that they want the applicant to have. Um, Generally, credentials can be a little bit more inflexible, and experience can be a little bit more flexible. And also, studies have shown that like white men apply to jobs that they only meet like 60 to 70% of their requirements for. And people in other identities and categories often don't apply unless they are closer to like 80 or 90%. So don't rule it out just because you're not checking every single one of those boxes. This is a wish list, and most companies are willing to train you up in certain areas if they really like your, skills or experience or self in other areas. And then a compensation section. So sometimes they will, like good job ads will have salary information listed. It's becoming more and more common to do that. But also like they should at least have some, like often they'll have something about benefits. It could be quite vague and it also could be absent. But hopefully companies are becoming more and more forthright about this stuff. And then this is where your list of tasks and your list of values can come in really handy as you're looking through these things. If you can find your tasks in the list of responsibilities that they want the person to do, then that is a really fantastic, indication that there's going to be a match between you and this type of job. And then can you find your values in sort of the about us or the overview section or in the compensation section? Like paying your mortgage is important and being able to survive in the city that you want to be in is important. Having, like a certain amount of time off so that you can go visit people or recharge or whatever you need to do is important. So finding your values in both of these sections is also, they're good places to look for those. So let's look at one really quick. I'm hoping I don't totally mess this up. Okay, I just did a quick search last night with the words instructional design and science communication um, because those are two things that I liked when I was a graduate student, and so I just thought I would see like what is out there for those. And I left the location to all of the United States. Um, LinkedIn is a really fantastic tool for this. There are certainly lots of other tools that you can use, but especially just in this exploratory phase, LinkedIn has a lot of variety and is going to be really useful for this. And then, there's a couple of different things: the instructional design specialist, science curriculum designer, STEM curriculum specialist is the one that I have selected right now, and they have. You almost always have to select sort of show you more, which I already have done on this one. So it says like about the job, but really it's talking about the company. So GBH enriches people's lives through programs, blah, blah. Like they're giving you their mission statement, basically. So you can start to figure out like, okay, is this the kind of thing that is going to align with my values? And this one has a department overview and then a job overview. So they're spending a lot of time on this like front matter. And then they get to their responsibilities section. So working closely with producers, curriculum writers, subject matter experts, game developers and engineers, instructional designers, project managers, and staff from other departments. This is honestly just about collaboration. So basically, collaboration and communication are two things that you're probably going to find in almost every job ad. So the more that you can refine those skills and the more that you can like get used to talking about those skills is going to be really useful. And then skill set, they have a sort of a separate section about skill set that these are kind of like seems like sometimes they'll have sometimes companies will have like nice to have or need to have sections, and then they can kind of break it up in different ways. But they're still looking with someone for someone with these skills. There's an education and experience section, and then preferred experience. And then it's like specifics about the job. It's contract, it's hybrid, there is a location. And then they do give a salary range and some benefits information. So that's just like, the basic. This is like has a lot more kind of front matter than a lot of job ads will have, but it's like fairly typical overall if you haven't spent a lot of time looking at those. Um, if I start this, perfect. Okay. So you have a couple of possibilities, but you're not sure if you'll like those possibilities or if you have the right experience for those kinds of jobs. I think a lot of people kind of get stuck in this place, and the best way out of it is to try stuff. We have in sort of the career design space, we have what is called a bias to action. And like you can have the best plan in the universe, but if you haven't tried it, you don't really know. So planning is great, but trying is way better. And you can sort of prototype these different career trajectories or targets in a couple of different ways. So like you can do informational interviews, and these, for those not familiar, are just like short, generally half-hour interviews that you conduct with people to find out like what their career trajectory was. Like, how did they get into the job that they currently hold? What is their what do they love about the current job that they have? And like what does the general like sector look like that they work in? Or what does the company look like? What is the culture like? And so they're basically just like conversations that you have with people that you are professionally interested in for some reason. And we'll talk a lot more about those in the in-person workshop because I think they're one of the best ways to find out more about a particular job area that you're interested in. There's also job shadowing. Like I think that people don't think about this outside of like undergrad settings, or if you're like, going into pre-health, it can be a really important thing to be doing. But honestly, you can job shadow almost anybody. And a lot of people will be open to it. So if you're having an informational interview with someone, this is a reasonable ask at the end of it. Oh, I should also note in an informational interview, this is not where you're asking the person for a job or where you're asking them for like opportunities within their organization. This is just purely information gathering. You can also try stuff out by doing volunteer or freelance work. So, like getting involved in it in some way. One that I didn't put on here, what is like job simulations. There are all kinds of websites that have job simulations, so you can try out working on a project that is like a real project for a particular company, but it's just like one that they've already done, and so they've sort of released all the material to this company online, and you can like some of them are no cost at all, and you can just kind of go through some of the tasks that you would need to do working on that project to get a feel for whether that's something that you would enjoy doing or not. And then internships. These are becoming more and more common for graduate students. And so you could talk to your advisor about like what that would look like. Is there a summer that you could be available to try an internship or a semester that you could do it like sort of part-time on the side? Um, and so, like, if it's possible at your particular institution, an internship can be a really great, really immersive way to figure out if that is a career path that you would really love or something that's totally not for you. Okay, so that is the material that I have, and I'm gonna scroll back and look at some of these questions, and then we can kind of um, take some more. Um, so. This person has a question about how to start hunting for jobs outside academia. How should we start? Just checking the job prescriptions. I don't know what keywords of the job I should search for. Any advice or examples how you end up with your current job? I mean, these like the keywords should be the kinds of tasks that you identified as tasks that you really like in the work that you do now, right? Because that's going to be your primary experience is that stuff. I mean, you can also think back to other jobs that you have held if you had other jobs like on the side or before entering graduate school or something. You can also think about those things and go through that same exercise of identifying the tasks that really energized you and the things that you didn't like as much. But so any of these things that really did energize you, like if you like the example that I gave, like curriculum design, is a great one to put into a search bar and just like see what comes up and scroll through and like click on job descriptions even like somewhat randomly just to figure out like because the title won't always speak to you, but sometimes the like list of responsibilities you're like, oh, actually like 70% of these things are things that I actually do in my work now and really enjoy. So I think that that is one of the best places to start sort of getting into, um, like figuring out what areas you might want to focus in on. Um, this person had a question about finding postdoc positions. Sometimes I wonder if I'm missing opportunities simply because I don't know where to look. Do they have any strategies, websites, or suggestions for finding postdoc opportunities? Um, I I know that these exist. I don't, this is not like the pulse that I have my finger on anymore. Um, but I know, oh, this is hard. So I think that there are sort of two ways to go about it. You can kind of look for actual listings of postdoc opportunities, and you can find some of these like there are sites like Higher Ed Jobs, and some of those might be posted on there. There are also sort of like research institutions that you can look in if you're looking for a postdoc opportunity, and a lot of them will have them listed just like a normal job. I'm thinking about like the Jackson Laboratory, which is also in Maine, that I have a lot of familiarity with, and they will post all of their jobs in one place, including postdoc opportunities. So if you're interested in particular settings, like institutions, then that like just checking them can be a really great way to do it. But also like reaching out to professors that you're really interested in working with is basically never a waste as long as you do it respectfully. And my advice there is to keep it short and be really specific about what you're interested in and why you're interested in their research specifically, just the same way that you would have when you're reaching out to potential advisors for PhD positions. Um, the piece that I'm not remembering right now is like I have a very distinct memory of when I was a graduate student or postdoc, like just like there being an actual spreadsheet of positions that were available, and that's not something that I have access to anymore, because I'm sort of like I've been a little bit removed from that world. But certainly, if anybody else has tips, they can drop them in the chat, and we can maybe get you some more resources there. Um, this person asks, is LinkedIn designed for industrial people or academia people as well? Always being a bit shy on posting things on social media. I think that's totally fair. I think that I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so that you guys can just look at my face if you want to. No pressure. Um, and oh, hang on, let me X out this also because I have my slideshow still going. Oh no. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I lost my window and I thought I just X'd out of this Zoom meeting, but we're good. Okay. So LinkedIn, I think, started very much as a way for non-academic people to connect. That's not for any particular reason. Like academics just didn't use it very much. I think since the large-scale death of academic Twitter, LinkedIn has become more important for academics also. So you'll find a lot more people like being more active on LinkedIn who come from an academic space. So I think LinkedIn is like broadly useful for like if you're interested in academic or non-academic careers. And like more so than ever nowadays. Um, I think that, here we go. Oh, yeah. The other thing is you don't necessarily have to post. Like lots of people use LinkedIn without posting. You can certainly generate a presence for yourself if you do choose to post, and you can post about, like a paper that you have coming out or a conference presentation that you're giving, and like very professional sorts of posts. And but like so you're absolutely welcome to do those things. But the other ways to be active on LinkedIn are to send messages to people and to connect with people and to just like comment on other people's posts or to even just like or support other people's posts. So there are lots of ways to be active on LinkedIn that don't necessarily involve like putting yourself out there in a post that can be kind of intimidating. But I find that people are generally really positive and responsive to people's posts. So if you do, if that's something that you are interested in, like just do it about something small, and then, that can be an easy sort of entry point. Um, okay. Okay. That was sorry, just a housekeeping things from Karen. Is there a way to filter search results on LinkedIn based on keywords? I think the vast majority of search results or ads I get for any sort of teaching job is actually an awful AI company wanting people to train their AI, and they use job titles like biology professor. Wow, I have not actually encountered this. I'm certainly not searching for biology professor jobs on LinkedIn very often, so maybe that is why. But that is cruddy and predatory, and I'm sorry that's the thing that you're encountering. Um, I um yeah, I have not super encountered that. I think there are ways to sort of filter your search. And you can certainly like there are I'm yeah, I'm trying to think if there are ways that you'd be able to filter out those kinds of results. I think the probably the more you zero in on a particular location and are not just doing like the wide world, might be a way to get rid of some of those predatory things. But yeah, I don't know. Like certainly play around with the filters and see if you can get decent results. If you also like search for something that's a little bit more specific than just teaching, I don't know what kind of keywords you're using, um, but sort of the more specific things that you can type into that, maybe the less you'll get results that are these kind of like weird predatory training and AI situation. But I don't know if there's specific ways that you could filter it out, like based on companies or anything like that. Um, yes, Evil Deer for people looking for postdocs. Man, I used to be on that. I've like already forgotten all of those things. So this person is struggling to divvy up their time between efforts to support first choice and second choice job type. For example, I might be a bit more competitive in academia if I spend all my time on papers, but then I'll be less competitive in something like a nonprofit outreach position. Um, Yeah, I think this is why like most of the advice is to target one of these things and to kind of like let go of the other ones. I think that it's really fantastic to come up with lots of options when you're kind of ideating on this. Um, but a lot of like basically all of the advice I've ever heard is to then focus in on one particular type of opportunity to move forward. And it's for this exact reason, right? It's like almost impossible to make time for doing all of the different things. If you're interested in like moving into project management in a particular area, then you might have to get another certification or something. And so that is not realistic to do for like your top five choices. It just isn't. So like, deciding between those is a really important step in this process. But it's at this point, I'm like, especially for this career exploration phase, it can be really beneficial to like keep your options open and explore really broadly. But then at some point, you do have to narrow and target before you start like the next step, which is making sure that your LinkedIn together, making sure that you're networking appropriately, making sure that you're upskilling in any areas that you need to. Um, I think that for something like papers and science communication, which would be like an outreach position, it is certainly possible to do both of those while you were in graduate school. Many people do find time to do both of those things. I find that giving yourself some kind of external motivation can be really helpful. So if there is a science communication fellowship or a science communication like competition, like the 3-minute thesis competition, that can be a good way to sort of like make yourself for a short period of time focus on that other aspect and then you know, like spend the rest of your time on papers or something. And it is really going to depend to like come down to your own particular interests in those areas. But I know that it can be incredibly difficult to find like any time at all to do any of this work while you're a graduate student or postdoc. So I can offer empathy, but not a lot of solutions there. I'm sorry. Oh, great. Someone posted the spreadsheet that I knew about but had totally like lost contact with. And okay, perfect. Oh, and then the last one, so like if people need to go, I absolutely understand. We are certainly at time. But the last question that's in the chat right now is about good websites or locations to look for PhD positions. And this is something I actually advise people on like pretty routinely in my current job. Um, but it's really like looking for advisors is going to be incredibly important. And so looking for like narrowing down schools and programs based on location is totally valid. Also looking for like looking through papers that you find really interesting and looking for the first or last authors can be a good way of finding people. But then make sure that you are reaching out to those people ahead of your application in a way that is like very targeted and also like nice and short and professional. Um, so hopefully that is like some quick tips that gets you started. But thanks everybody for coming today. And could someone stop the recording? That would be fantastic. Okay. Thanks everybody.